Hello, and over the last few days I've been playing quite a bit of Rush, just to give it a try. Haven't played that much Rush in Battlefield 4 because, to be fair, the maps are pretty weak. In Battlefield 3, maps seem to be designed for Rush and Conquest, but in Battlefield 4, Rush is Conquest's red-headed stepchild, and nobody pays it any attention. Certainly not when they were designing the maps. It's just horrible. And I thought, well, I've got some footage. I'll try and explain why I think Rush is so bad in Battlefield 4. And the biggest thing is the map design. The map design tends to funnel everybody into a kill zone. And there are lots of wide open spaces on the Battlefield 4 maps. And there are a lot of vehicles that just patrol around the edge and take lots of people out. So which maps do I think are good for Rush? Well, this one, Flood Zone, is probably the best map in Battlefield 4 for playing Rush on. It's got limited numbers of vehicles, and those vehicles are stuck on the ground level and around the edge of the map. So once you get into the building sections, the vehicles have very little effect on the map at all, apart from the helicopter. And that is a transport chopper, so it's not an out-and-out killing machine. It does have a design issue, which is the buildings in the middle of the map. The two really tall buildings, which have campers on top of them. But that's a problem this map has had since it came into Battlefield 4. It was horrible. Whoever put those two buildings up there in the map design needs shooting, because they don't know how that kind of thing is going to work in Battlefield 4. Other than that, Flood Zone is perfectly designed for Rush. It's a map that's pretty much long and thin, so you have got enough width to do some flanks, but not enough width that you can have snipers sitting around on the outside being a pain in the arse. And you've got enough cover and routes to objectives that the infantry can actually make it without being machine gunned or tanked down before they get close. And the buildings themselves are not destructible. So there are parts of the buildings, like the staircase entrances at the top, or a few walls and a few wooden buildings you can take out, but the main routes are not destroyable. That is a problem on a lot of the maps, that there's just no cover for infantry. If your tank drivers are smart on Goldmud Railway and the defenders don't take them out, then you just level all the buildings around the MCONs. Now, that just makes it harder for the attackers, but doesn't make it impossible. The opposite is true on the naval strike maps. If you're defending, you often find yourself sitting on an island with all the cover vanishing as the RIB boats and the attack boats just sit out at range and bombard the island that you're on. And there's nothing you can do about it. Even the metal containers and rocks don't provide cover against circling attack boats with blast damage, and you just end up all being funneled into one place to be killed. I haven't had an enjoyable round of Rush on any of the naval strike maps, and it's the same for almost all the DLCs. China Rising is probably the worst for it, because China Rising seems to have been developed as a 64-man vehicle heavy map, so there are large sections of open terrain and there are too many vehicles. So if I was designing Rush maps, what changes would I make? Well, I'd make sure there were none of these massive tall buildings that you can use as a sniper perch, and only have a helicopter or one elevator as the way up to the top. I'd also make sure that my Rush maps were multi-level. If you look at a prime example of a map that should be good that isn't, it's Siege of Shanghai. There are plenty of buildings, that could have been used like the buildings are here. So you've got multiple routes up to a level, and you've got the ability to flank and come around in different directions. But weirdly, in Siege of Shanghai, you can't get into most of the buildings. You're still stuck to running ground routes, and there's only 2 or 3 routes to each of the MCOMs. And it's pretty easy to defend. A couple of prone guys with LMGs can keep hold of most of those routes, which is a shame because the section with the underground mall does have a lot of levels and is good fun to play. I'd also restrict the vehicles on the maps, so I'd take out the tanks, maybe replace them with infantry fighting vehicles or Amtraks, and I'd put in a couple of more jeeps. So a jeep is a good way of moving around a map fast. It's got an okay machine gun, you can spawn on it, but it's pretty easy to destroy. And if you want something that's armoured that's going to last a while, use an Amtrak or an infantry fighting vehicle. They don't have the killing potential of a tank, they don't have the building destruction potential of a tank, and they're easier to take out. And I'd also remove the attack boats, because they can just rain down death onto infantry from miles away. And they've got TV missiles which can take out buildings from miles away. So I'd probably replace those with an Amtrak or with an extra rib boat and a couple of jet skis. The vehicles in Rush should be tactical. So in Battlefield 3 the Amtrak was used as a mobile spawn point and people used to defend it. And you'd place it somewhere strategic, and that was what the Amtrak did. It wasn't an out and out infantry killing machine. And it's a similar story for the jeeps, bikes and jet skis. They shouldn't be there to get kills. What they're there for is for you to be able to flank and change position quickly and try and take the enemy by surprise. I think using faster, more vulnerable vehicles on Rush would bring back the tactical element. You can't just steam a tank up the middle and hope to try and hold an objective. You've got to think about it. You're going to have to move an infantry fighting vehicle up slower because it's got less protection, and if you've got a jeep, then you've got to work out carefully what route you're going to have to take to get towards the objectives quickly. I'd also change the player numbers. I would remove the option for 64-man Rush servers because they don't work. They've never worked. 32-man is by far the best number for Rush. You can get away with 48-man on some of the maps, but 64 is just too crowded. You can't take a massive map that was designed for 64 players and then cram all those players into one region and expect it to work. So why are DICE giving the 64-man Rush option? That's it. Those are the 3 things that I'd change to make Rush more enjoyable. Design maps with multiple routes to the MCOMs, reduce the number of attack vehicles and reduce the number of players on the maps. Now there are other things that you can do to make Rush better, but those also affect improving Battlefield 4 as a whole. But I'm probably going to cover that in another video. My idea at the moment is I'm going to try concentrating on one game mode every few days and come up with my ideas for how you would make those game modes better. Now these are just going to be my opinions and my experience, so you might not agree with it, but hopefully I can justify my decisions and give reasons why I think changes should be made. But I think Rush would benefit from a reduction in grenades and explosives, and also a reduction in just how many of the buildings are totally collapsible. Have plenty of blowout walls, have cover reduced but not completely removed. I think Rush should be fast paced and fun, so rounds that are around 15-20 minutes long, 32 players so it doesn't get overcrowded, and basically you should be able to use Rush when you don't feel like playing an hour-long round on Conquest. Rush should be given an equal footing with Conquest. If you design a map that's good for Rush, then it's pretty much going to have areas that are good for domination and team deathmatch and squad deathmatch, because the kind of areas that infantry need in Rush are those same areas you need for infantry in domination and deathmatch. All I want is for DICE to concentrate a bit more on the Rush element of maps and just make Rush fun and balanced again. Anyway, those are my ideas on Rush. Let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.